learners, welcome to the 9th lesson of my course Ecology from Cells to Gaia. Today we will talk about the ecology of biological diversity. The number of species in a community is also called richness. Richness ignores the fact that some species are rare and others are common. Diversity indices are designed to combine species richness and the evenness of the distribution of individuals among those species. Attempts to describe a complex community structure by one single attribute, such as richness or diversity, can still be criticized because so much valuable information is lost. A more complete picture is therefore sometimes provided in a rank abundance diagram. A simple model can help us understand the determinants of species richness. Within it, a community will contain more species, the greater the range of resources in three cases. If the species are more specialized in their use of resources, if species overlap to a greater extent in their use of resources, or if the community is more fully saturated. If a higher productivity is correlated with a wider range of available resources, then this is likely to lead to an increase in species richness, but more of the same might lead to more individuals per species rather than more species. In general, species richness often increases with the richness of available resources and productivity, although in some cases the reverse has been observed. It's called the paradox of enrichment, and others have found species richness to be highest at the intermediate levels of productivity. Predation can exclude certain prey species and reduce richness, or permit more niche overlap and thus greater richness. That's called, as I explained you last time, predator-mediated coexistence. Overall, therefore, there may be a humped relationship between predation intensity and species richness in a community, with the greatest richness at the intermediate intensities. Environments that are more spatially heterogeneous often accommodate extra species because they provide a greater variety of microhabitats, a greater range of microclimates, more type of place to hide from predators, and so on. The resource spectrum is increased. Environments instead that are dominated by an extreme abiotic factor, often called harsh environments, are more difficult to recognize that might be immediately apparent. Some apparently harsh environments do support few species, but any overall association has proved extremely difficult to establish. In a predictable, seasonally changing environment, different species may be suited to conditions at different times of the year. More species may therefore be expected to coexist in a completely constant environment. On the other hand, opportunities for specialization, such as obligate fruit eating, exist in a non-seasonal environment that are not available in a seasonal environment. Unpredictable climate variation, so climate instability, could decrease the richness by denying species the chance to specialize, or increase richness by preventing competitive exclusion. There is no established relationship between climatic instability and species richness. The intermediate disturbance hypothesis suggests that very frequent disturbances keep most patches at an early stage of succession, where there are few species. But very rare disturbances allow most patches to become dominated by the best competitors, where there are also few species. Originally proposed to account for patterns in richness in tropical rainforests and coral reefs, the hypothesis has occupied a central place in the development of ecological theory. It has often been suggested that communities may differ in richness because some are closer to equilibrium and therefore more saturated than others. That the tropics are rich in species is in part because they have existed over long and uninterrupted periods of evolutionary time. A simplistic contrast between the unchanging tropics and the disturbed and recovering temperate regions, however, is untenable. Lakes are highland in a sea of land. Mountaintops are high-altitude island in a low-altitude ocean. And then the number of species on islands decreases as island area decreases, in part because larger area typically encompass more different types of habitat. However, MacArthur and Wilson equilibrium theory of island biogeography argues for a separate island effect based on a balance between immigration and extinction, and the theory has received much support. In addition, on isolated islands especially, the rate at which new species evolve may be comparable or even faster than the rate at which they arrive as new colonies. Richness increases from the poles to the tropics. Predation, productivity, climatic variation, and the greater evolutionary age of the tropics have been put forward as a partial explanation. In terrestrial environments, richness often, but not always, decreases with altitude. Factors instrumental in the latitudinal trend are also likely to be important in this, but so are area and isolation. In aquatic environment, instead, richness usually decreases with the depth or for similar reasons. In succession, if they run their full course, richness first increases because of colonization, but eventually stabilizes because of the avoidance of competition. The Cambrian explosion of taxa may have been an example of exploiter-mediated coexistence. The Permian decline may reflect a species-area relationship when the Earth's continents were together as Pangea. The changing pattern of plant taxa may reflect the displacement of older, less specialized taxa by newer, more specialized ones. The extinctions of many large animals in the Pleistocene may reflect the end of human predation and hold lessons for the present day. I would recommend you to follow my course entitled Biological Diversity, Theories, Measure and Data Sampling Techniques, free available in Coursera, to explore more about biodiversity and evolution. So thank you for the attention, see you in the next lecture.